Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
I don't think anybody in that dugout or anybody on that field's thinking about last year, the year before last, or anything like that. So I really don't think it has anything to do with what's going to take place this weekend.
It's important to everybody here. It's important to our baseball team. But, you know, the minute you start trying to overemphasize something, players don't seem to react well to it. It's important games for us. We'll be ready to play.
Well, you know, when you think about it, even though South Carolina swept the Tigers last year, two of those games Clemson had in their back pockets pretty much and let get away from them. Not to take anything away from South Carolina battling back, but remember, in Columbia, the Tigers led 6-1. And here at Doug Kingsmore, in the last game of the series, the Tigers had a 3-run lead in the ninth, and South Carolina rallied to win. So, of course, the Tigers have to blame themselves because they played some sloppy baseball and let those games get away, and it's 27 outs, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to play all the way to the last out. But the point is that despite the one-sided nature of the series here of late, it has been competitive. It'll be competitive this weekend. It really could go either way between these two fine baseball teams, and we're so happy here on Sports Talk to be live with you from Doug Kingsmore Stadium to be able to follow what is indeed the best baseball rivalry in the country. Phil Kornbluth here at Doug Kingsmore. Good to have K-Mac, Kevin McCrary, back in the seat in our studio in downtown Columbia after a couple of days away of dealing with the gunk. And it's good that you're there, nice and warm and toasty, because it's chilly, but it's not unbearable here tonight. Right now there is no wind. The wind was blowing in a little while ago. Right now there is no wind. We're going through the final field prep. In just a little bit, the ceremonial first pitch will be thrown. I guess it'll be pitches because it'll be Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott, the new Clemson football co-offensive coordinators, throwing out the first pitches. You know, somehow, K-Mac, Clemson was going to work football into this thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Jeff Scott and Tony Elliott. But who will throw the first pitch? Which one will get the honor of throwing the first one out? Or will they do it simultaneously, just as they do the play calling?
Well, I guess Tony's calling the plays. Maybe he'll be the one, or maybe they'll have two catchers back there to catch them together.
A lot of pressure there. Whoever throws the closest strike will be the guy that gets to call the first play next season. That's what Dabo has said, I'm sure.
Speaking of Dabo, we were up here for him today as he had his pre-spring practice press conference. The Tigers will begin spring ball Monday at 4 o'clock. We'll hear from him coming up. We'll have Lee Klein with us, our basketball consultant, our basketball international consultant. He'll be with us in the second hour. Monty Dutton, the full Monty on NASCAR, will join us as well in our second hour. Qualifying just getting underway in Atlanta for this weekend's race, so we'll stay on top of that for you. We've got recruiting as well, and we'll take a few of your phone calls here early on if you want to give final thoughts on the big baseball series this weekend between the Gamecocks and the Tigers. Back in a moment. Glad you're with us on this Friday night, wherever you are dialed in around the state of South Carolina. We come to you from beautiful Doug Kingsmore Stadium, where the refurbishments never seem to end. They continue to work on this stadium to improve and upgrade. It's still a very beautiful ballpark, and we're getting ready for some terrific college baseball tonight between the Tigers and the Gamecocks. Here are your starting lineups for the visiting Gamecocks. 6-1 coming in. It'll be Gene Cone leading off, batting center field. Elliot Caldwell in left. Max Schrock at second. Kyle Martin at first. Connor Bright at right, or in right. Alex Destino DHing. DC Arendis at third. Logan Koch catching. Jordan Gore at short. Will Crow, the right-hander, the starter, 1-0, 0.87. So, K-Mac, one thing that Chad Holbrook has tried to do here a little bit with the lineup is kind of break up those left-handed bats, with Caldwell batting second between the left-handers Cone and Schrock. Bright batting between Martin and Destino, a couple of other left-handed hitters. So that was one of the pieces of conversation yesterday, all those left-handed bats facing the left-hander Matthew Crownover.
Yeah, and earlier in the preseason, Holbrook made the comment where he doesn't buy into that as much as a lot of people. He thinks if you're a good hitter, you can hit any pitching. But clearly he's going to play a little bit of the percentages here and understand that, by and large, right-handed hitters tend to do a little bit better against left-handed pitchers, statistically speaking. So that'll take a little bit of the weight off those guys. But he's not taking those big bats out of the lineup. I mean, he's going to have lefties in his lineup, and some of his best hitters just so happen to be mostly left-handed hitters.
Mm-hmm. The Tigers lineup is like this. Leading off, Tyler Slayton, and playing in center field. In left field, Reed Roman, who had a very big game against Wofford the other day. Tyler Krieger will bat third in DH. Stephen Duggar in right. Chris Oakey will catch. It's Weston Wilson at third. Freshman Chase Pender at second. Andrew Cox at first. And Eli White will be the shortstop. Matthew Crownover, left-hander on the mound, 1-0. He is not allowed an earned run in 13 innings this season. Tigers have struggled a little bit in the field. That, again, is a bugaboo for them. Their fielding percentage coming into this game is in the 960s, while South Carolina has been excellent in the field, fielding percentage of 985. That could play a big role. Unearned runs, which team is going to commit the fewest mistakes tonight in particular in a game where you figure base runners and runs will come at a premium because the pitching should be very, very good. All right, so we are set for baseball here tonight in just a little bit, and looking forward to what should be another classic baseball game between South Carolina and Clemson. A few other notes to pass along to you, and if you'd like to join us, 800-956-7266 is the number. Congratulations to our good friend, Matt Hogue, who has had the interim label for the last 11 months, interim AD at Coastal Carolina. They have officially removed the interim title, so now he is the full-time athletics director at Coastal Carolina. He's 44 years old. He's been with the school for nearly 20 years, almost all of that time as the play-by-play voice for the Chanticleers, but also moving up in the administration as a vice president, and been involved in a lot of different areas in the growth of that athletic department at the Coastal Carolina, and now he will oversee it, K-Mac. So there's hope for all of us behind the mic to one day get behind the desk and make the big decisions.
Yeah, Matt's a smart guy, a very sharp cookie. 44 years young, and he's going to be running that athletic department that is just getting bigger and better every year, it seems like. Corn, I know you were just down there, last week before last? You're down there all the time. I can't keep up. But their facilities upgrades continue, and with their location and their aspirations, that's a program that could really see some big things in its near future.
No question. I mean, their student body size continues to increase. Joe Moglia has thrown a lot of money into the program, his own personal money. They continue to raise money at a high level. I don't know if one day they have aspirations of following along the lines of a Georgia Southern, an Appalachian State, an Old Dominion, and moving up to a Division I in football. They already are Division I in all the other sports, but in particular football. Of course, it would mean increasing the size of their stadium. The thing is, though, they still don't have a very strong fan base attendance-wise, game in and game out, to support that kind of thinking yet. They've got to get to where they're averaging, well, their stadium won't hold enough, but they've got to get to where there's interest enough to where they would average 25,000 per game. But they're a long way from that right now.
Yeah, but one thing they have done under Moglia, though, is they've kind of become the premier FCS team in the South. They were the number one team in the country for a while last season. They've been in the playoffs each of the past few years. But now that you've seen Appalachian State move up and Georgia Southern move up, Wofford's always been around. I mean, there's still some SoCon teams here in the Palmetto State that are competing, but the past couple of years, it's been Coastal Carolina as the elite team, not just in South Carolina, but in the Southeast.
Yeah, they're going to be really good again next year. They got the quarterback back. They got the running back back. They'll be a top-5 team going into next season, no question about that. All right. Also, Goose Creek today officially named their new head football coach. He comes from the staff, replacing Chuck Reedy, will be the defensive coordinator, Chris Kander. He was chosen over 2 other finalists, Miles Aldridge, our old buddy. Now he's up in Cornelius, North Carolina, and Brian Rimpf, who's out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Kander is a Goose Creek graduate from 1987, played football and golf there. So it's a great move for him. Of course, he replaces really a legend in Reedy, who was 119-47 in 13 seasons, including his last 5 years, 62-5, 49-4 the last 4 years, and they last lost to an area high school team in 2009. That's how dominant they were under Chuck Reedy, considering where that program was when he took it over. So Kander's been a part of it, and he'll now have his chance to run everything. Hate to see this story. Budget plan proposed by South Carolina State President Thomas Elzey would cut the men's basketball team and consider a change in athletic conferences. He was placed on administrative pay leave this week as state lawmakers tackle the financial crisis at the school. Wednesday, to the Orangeburg Times and Democrat, his proposal includes the elimination of men's basketball, women's softball, and women's soccer, and calls for a consideration of change in conference affiliation. He does not say which conference they would consider joining. The Bulldogs have been playing men's basketball since 1920, K-Mac.
Yeah, they've been in the MEAC since 1970. It's going to cost them a lot of money to do that. There's contracts that they would have to break. They talked about doing this a year or so ago, and then they realized that it wouldn't be financially feasible to do that. It could cost them a lot. And I really hope that they look at other ways to fix their problems there. And they have problems. I mean, they've made some mistakes, but I don't think their athletics department is the root of where their problems have been. I think there's been some other problems behind the scenes that the board and that president, who is, by the way, he's not even active right now. He's on a paid administrative leave for all of his blunders, and now he's trying to do this maybe to save his job. But I hope this isn't the path that South Carolina State goes down.
All right, we just had the ceremonial first pitches. Looked to me like Tony Elliott threw a curve and Jeff Scott threw a fastball, so already a difference of opinion on how to run things with the Clemson offensive coordinators. Of course, just kidding. They ran the bowl game, and they did extremely well, K-Mac. There's no reason not to think they won't work in harmony.
Yeah, I mean, those two guys both have been on the staff for a while, and, Tony Elliott was up in the box for the first time against Oklahoma. He was actually practicing a couple of days before the game. He went up there and practiced and watched the players work out from there so he could get the feel for it. Yeah, it looked like it worked pretty good for him from the first play till about the last play in that game.
Yeah. Well, when your first play call turns into a big touchdown, that does make it easy for you. All right, we're going to give you the recruiting early. That'll be coming up in a moment. Stay with us here on Sports Talk.
Just a few minutes away from first pitch at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, the best baseball rivalry in the country. And that is not hyperbole. By far the best rivalry in college baseball, about to commence game one at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Matthew Crownover on the mound for the Tigers. And we'll have the Gamecocks going with Will Crow. The national anthem is in the books, and now we'll throw it back to Corn for some quick recruiting before first pitch.
All right, yeah, nicely done there with the national anthem. All right, quickly, few recruiting notes. Checked on Denzel Johnson today, wide receiver from AC Flora. Coach Reggie Shaw said that he did improve on his last ACT. He's going to take the SAT next month. And the coach said his grades are looking good. He spoke with Clemson last week, and right now if he maintains, there's a good chance they will have something for him in May. This is the coach talking. Because he's going to qualify by the skin of his teeth if he maintains his current grades with that score. He is, like I said, going to take the SAT again to try to give him some breathing room and to help Clemson in their lobbying efforts to get him accepted into school. Shaw says he's heard nothing more from USC since they told him Georgia military for the kid. Now, Johnson talked to Steve Spurrier Jr. about a week, 10 days ago. He told us that Spurrier Jr. told him if he gets qualified, they'd be interested in looking at him and bringing him on board. So we'll see if anything develops there. But I'd say now, more likely, Clemson for him, if the grades hold up in late May, there's no slippage, looks like Clemson. Offensive lineman Josh Ball, 6'7", 305, Fredericksburg, Virginia. USC is one of his 18 offers, and he wants to come down to visit South Carolina. He's really interested. Some of the other offers are West Virginia, NC State, Maryland, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. He's in regular contact with Deke Adams. Receiver DeAndre Overton, 6'5", 195 of Greensboro. He's a two-sport standout, basketball and football. Had 61 catches last year, averaging 14 per game. Virginia Tech has offered him for both. That's the only school to do that. But Clemson and NC State are currently his top two. Went to Clemson on a junior day, really liked it. Has been to NC State several times as well. East Carolina, Old Dominion, North Carolina, Wake, Duke, Louisville, West Virginia, Boston College, Tennessee, Kentucky are other offers for him. And in basketball, USC has offered power forward Russell Woods, 6'8", 220, Logan Junior College in Illinois, native of Chicago, this year averaging 14.7 rebounds per game. Oh, my gosh, he's shooting 62% from the floor. He knows how to make a shot. Other schools showing interest, Iowa, Gonzaga, South Florida, East Carolina, and Bradley. He also has picked up an offer from Missouri. All right, K-Mac, that's recruiting. First pitch, the real first pitch right around the corner. Going to toss it to you, and we'll be in and out with you, updating things as we progress here at Doug Kingsmore.
All right, Corn, and we will be keeping a close eye on that game. We're going to hit a timeout here. Hang in there, Dabo Sweeney. He had a lot to say, of course. Dabo always has a lot to say. And spring practice cranking up Monday at 4 o'clock for Clemson. We'll get an update on Deshaun Watson and how Dabo's going to replace all that talent that graduated and moved on to the NFL, or soon to be in the NFL. Dabo Sweeney coming up next.
It's been a good off season so.
I'm sure if you had to take one guess on Dabo Swinney's mood, it would be upbeat and positive, right? Dabo's almost always upbeat and positive, and that was the case today as he met with the media to preview the start of spring practice, which begins Monday afternoon. Let's take a listen in on what Dabo had to say.
It's been a good off season so far. We're about 7 weeks in as far as our players, and I really like that. I like to get a good 7-8 weeks if possible, just to have time to really evaluate ourselves, really give Joey and the staff some great time with our players down in the weight room and just our nutrition, the whole approach, really have a little bit of time and then also to have a little time to get out there and challenge them a little bit in our mat drills and have a little time to have some meetings built in as well, get a kind of a snail's pace at the start at the installation, because you're really starting over every year. I mean, I think it's important that you do that because every year you're building a new team and you have new players, and this year in particular is very unusual for us because our team is pretty much here. We only have 10 guys, 10 scholarship guys that aren't here that'll be joining us in the summer, and so and maybe a few of those guys can help us. I don't know. We'll see, but our football team is going through spring practice, and that's not always the case in college football. Usually you have most of your allotted new guys coming in the summer, but with 15 mid-year enrollees, it really gives us a unique opportunity. And you have people entering your program that know nothing every year, and you really have to start over. But it gives the older guys an opportunity to kind of reestablish, when you throw it maybe a little bit more sticks this time around, and they just kind of continue to progress with your system. So that's really what spring ball's about. It's fundamentals, it's technique. We've learned a lot about ourselves, studying ourselves, talking to other coaches, looking at our problems. Defensively, we were the standard, in a lot of areas, this year. Usually you study yourself and you say, okay, well, we were, 20th in third down, for example. Well, what was first? Who was first in the country? And you kind of study yourself, and we were the standard in a bunch of categories, and we weren't off in several others. So that's a real positive. So how do we continue to try to sustain some of that success? But then where do we need to improve? We look at our big plays. We look at, we think we gave up too many runs of 10 yards or more. Why? Was it things that kept showing up? Was it isolated? Was there a pattern? Was it misfits, missed tackles, poor eyes, poor alignment, busted assignments, whatever. And then same thing on the offensive side as we really study ourselves. At 28 sacks, why? Well, 12 were on the offensive line, 12. The offensive line was responsible for 12 sacks. Well, okay, there's 16 more. The offensive line always gets blamed for all of them, but why? Well, the quarterback had this many. Our tight ends had these. The running back had, and so how do we fix that? We need to improve, obviously, in the red zone. A couple of years ago, I think we were number one in the country in red zone, and this year we weren't very good. I think we were 78%. And why? What happened? Well, we had about 10 just screw-ups. Okay, well, how do we fix that? Is it scheme? Is it personnel? Is it just maybe a little mis-execution, some poor luck, whatever? A couple of turnovers. Fumbles in the red zone, bad snap in the red zone, interception in the red zone, a couple missed kicks, a couple bad calls, a couple of poor executions. So you start looking at that and you say, okay, here's what we need to do to improve. Some of it's personnel. We a couple years ago we were a little better running the ball with our quarterback in the red zone, having a guy like Taj Boyd, and we were a little better in some one-on-one situations with Sammy and Martavis. So some of it is personnel, but that's what we do in the off season. We study ourselves. we really critique and try to figure out how we need to structure spring practice, where the emphasis needs to be. You get 15 days. We're not gonna get it all done, but we got to make a lot of progress. And but one thing that keeps coming up as we really go through this process is leadership. Obviously we lost a lot of good players, but everybody loses good players. But we lost some great leadership. I mean, we lost some tough, battle-tested guys, and that's what we got to develop in a hurry. You can't give a guy 3 and 4 years of experience, in a spring practice, but every opportunity that we get to really develop the chemistry, the leadership, the toughness of some of these young, talented guys that we have, it's critical that we do that. We got to look for opportunities, to challenge them, and in all those areas. So that's a consistent theme as we talk through each position and what the goals are for each position and what the overall goals are for offense and defense, especially in a couple of areas. So I'm fired up to get going. I mean, it's a blast to get out on the field. I've had a chance to, visit with a lot of guys in the last couple of weeks and just talking about some philosophies and things, and we're ready to roll. March 2nd, can't get here soon enough. We've got a lot of work to do. I like our football team. First thing everybody's going to jump out at everybody is the defensive line. We lost, a bunch of NFL guys. I really think I think we'll have 15 guys that are going to get in the camp, either through the draft or through signing as a free agent. We've never had that. I mean, that's a lot of football players off of your team that are good enough to get a shot at the next level. When you got that type of talent walking out the door, obviously there's a lot to replace. But I like how we've recruited. I love our young talent. I think our frontline guys, we've got good experience. We just don't have the experience depth that we've had the last year or so. But there's other areas that are stronger, like in the secondary. I think we've got a chance to be special in the secondary if we'll continue to work and just chop wood every day. Same thing in running back. I think we've got a chance to be special. I think we've got a chance to be really, really good at quarterback, tight end, and with the addition of the guys that we have in the offensive line, that entire room is going to be transformed. We really went through a whole season this past year with 8 guys, sometimes 6 and 7 guys, and these 4 freshmen coming in, or plus Falcinelli and Hearn, and a year wiser Crowder and Maverick Morris, really give us kind of a transformation in our offensive line room. So I'm excited just to get out there and get started, and we'll start with the fundamentals. We'll start with the basics. Sometimes as coaches we get so focused on what we're doing, and my challenge is to make sure that we know how to do it, that we don't get distracted by what to do as opposed to how to do it. And that's what spring ball is about. So it'll be a lot of fundamental and technical work. You look at our linebacker core. I mean, we got a bunch of young guys that don't know anything as far as our system. They haven't been coached by Brent. And so we just got a lot of work to do. So we're going to start over. That's basically what we're going to do. And, hopefully make a lot of progress in 15 days. We got injury-wise, most everybody's in pretty good shape. Obviously Adam Choice and DJ Greenlee, Seconder, Deshaun Watson, and Travis Blanks are out and limited. They'll do some things, but limited. I know everybody's going to ask me about Deshaun. He's just killing it. Way ahead. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, he just way ahead of where a guy normally would be.
All right, yeah, Deshaun Watson way ahead of where he's supposed to be. Some other notes from Dabo Swinney. They want to work on improving in the red zone, 78% last season. They think they have recruited well to replace the defensive line, but they don't have that experience. Running back Zach Brooks and tight end Jordan Leggett are back from injuries, but defensive lineman DJ Reader will be limited because of his weight on his big toe, not ready to do that yet. And they're going to push Nick Schuessler this spring to see if he can take that next step at quarterback. The expectations are for Watson to be back for summer drills. Kendall Joseph and Corey Rogers will get the first crack at Mike linebacker, and he thinks all 4 of his defensive linemen that graduated will be starting in the NFL next year. All right, a couple of other notes from Dabo Swinney. Right guard Jay Guillermo will not be available this spring. He is not with the team right now, dealing with what Swinney deemed personal health issues. Also, tight end J.J. McCullough, who I think has been suspended for like 15 years now, remains suspended, but Swinney said he is making progress towards reinstatement. And to clarify what Dabo Swinney said about his defensive line starters, all 4 of his defensive line starters, he said, are one day going to be drafted. going to be drafted, not start in the NFL. I exaggerated the exaggeration, which made it even more ridiculous. But yeah, every player at Clemson is going to be drafted. Dabo Swinney believes that. I mean, he says that about all of them. That's just what Dabo does. He's no stranger to hyperbole. All right, there was some action in the top of the first inning. USC got its first 2 runners aboard, but there is a but. Let's go to Cornblue to Doug Kingsmore Stadium for the buts.
Was that a butt or a failed bunt that you're referring to?
With your number 3 hitter. I do not like bunting with your number 3 hitter. Just not something number 3 hitters are usually comfortable doing. And Max Schrock is not a guy you put in your lineup to bunt.
Yeah, that'll be a question for Chad Holbrook at the end of the ball game. USC got the first 2 on board with walks off Crownover, and then the point that you just brought up, Max Schrock on an 0-1 pitch. They put the bunt sign on, I guess. I'm sure he wasn't bunting on his own, and he popped it up to the catcher. So now you got first and second, 1 out. Then wild pitch advances the runners to second and third. 1 out, second, third. And then Crownover bared down on South Carolina hitters. He struck out Kyle Martin swinging on a 3-2 pitch, and he got Connor Bright looking on a 1-2 pitch, and that got the Tigers out of the inning. And now we're in the bottom of the first. Clemson is at the plate. We had a catcher's interference on the leadoff batter for the Tigers, Tyler Slayton. And a little while ago, we had, not sure if it's a wild pitch or a pass ball, probably a wild pitch. I think it was in the dirt first. He's now at second base with nobody out. So the Tigers have a threat brewing here in the bottom of the first.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that one, Corn, as we play in the first inning. USC stranded a pair. Clemson now with a runner in scoring position and nobody out. A few of the other games taking place around the state are involving in-state teams in the Big South. Winthrop and Jacksonville, they're knotted up 4-4 in the 8th inning up in Rock Hill. Charleston Southern leads St. John's at the Charleston Southern tournament 3-2, that game in the 2nd inning. Bottom of the 9th in Conway, Coastal Carolina and West Virginia locked up in a 2-2 tie. Earlier today, the College of Charleston knocked off Indiana 4-2. That's a big win for Monty Lee and the Cougars. Indiana has won the Big Ten each of the past 2 seasons. And checking the Southern Conference scoreboard here on the Friday night Southern Conference scoreboard, you've got Furman and UMES at the Fighting Camel Classic in Blues Creek, North Carolina. Who is UMES? I have no clue. No clue. Maryland Eastern Shore. There we go. That makes sense. I'll buy that. Pope says it's Maryland Eastern Shore. That would make sense. Furman a 5-1 winner in that one. In the 6th inning, the Citadel and Alabama State, they're tied 8-8. So a lot of tight games. That one in the 6th inning. A lot of runs in that one too. And Wofford and Harvard. Pope, that was yeah, that's where the Pope was going to go to school there. Corn claims he went to school there. Corn, he's got the Brian Williams collegiate transcript. Wofford and Harvard, 9-1. Terriers on top of Harvard in the bottom of the 6th inning. Let's go to Doug Kingsmore. I think we have some things transpiring as we speak here.
Yes, we do. In fact, that Wofford-Harvard game, I think they should match up their SAT scores against one another and see, who I would put Wofford's SATs up against Harvard's in a head-to-head battle. Anyway, Clemson gets on the board first. Slayton comes in to score. Ball does not leave the infield. Remember, he reached base, catcher's interference. That brought Chad out of the dugout, by the way, to question that call, to no avail. Advanced to second on a wild pitch. A ground out to the pitcher, moved him to third. And now Krieger, an infield single, bounding ball to second base, and he beat it out. That got the run in, unearned run, but the Tigers will take it, and they lead it 1-0 as we play here in the bottom of the first.
All right, always good to get that first run on the board. You remember last year, Clemson had a big lead on the Gamecocks in Game 1. That was in Columbia. And it turned, though, when there was a grand slam by Grayson Griner, and that just turned the whole game around. But Clemson, for their sake, especially in this series, the way it's gone recently, the Tigers a little pressure comes off of you with Crownover on the mound getting that first run. All right, we're going to hit a quick timeout. We'll have time for your phone calls. Busy second hour around the corner, too. USC put 2 runners in scoring position in its half of the first inning, but didn't get anybody across. Gamecocks couldn't scratch a run. The Tigers not making the same mistake in their half of the first. Let's go back to Kornblut. There's been more scoring during the break.
Yeah. I'm just looking up at the scoreboard, too. You know, they have the pitch speed up there on the scoreboard. Will Crow allegedly just threw a 96-mile-an-hour fastball.
I'll take the under.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate that thing is. He does throw hard. 96 is pretty doggone good. But anyway, not hard enough because Clemson has got 2 on the board here, and they've got 1 out, so they're threatening runners on first and second. A moment ago, we had the infield single by Krieger that scored a run. Then Duggar singled to left field. That put Krieger on second. And then Chris Oakey, who's starting to come out of his early slump in the season, he just laced a single up the middle. That scored Duggar. That scored Krieger with Duggar advancing to second. So first and second for the Tigers. They're up 2-0. Got 3 hits on the board already against the Gamecocks. Gamecocks have committed an error, and it's 2-0 Clemson here in the
Tigers wasting no time. And Matthew Crownover, who's been so good, he's the ace. And now, I mean, we've kind of you always second guess a baseball manager when they do different things with their lineup, and this was a move to bring Crow from the number 2 starter to the number 1 starter today. He had been starting in that number 2 slot and had been outstanding, but Jack Wynkoop has been, he's got a little more experience under his belt than Will Crow. Maybe Crow, a little bit of the nerves getting to him, who knows, but not as sharp here, and Clemson taking advantage. And we'll see if he can get out of this with any more trouble. That's what Matthew Crownover did. He managed to pitch out of his jam. Will Crow unable to pitch out of his jam, and now the Tigers with an early 2-0 lead. A lot of baseball to be played, obviously, at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Remember, Game 2 tomorrow at 2:30, and there will be no TV on that one because somebody goofed up and forgot to get the production truck to Fluor Field. And the finale will be Sunday at Carolina Stadium, a noon start time there. But 2-0 right now. Clemson on top of USC at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Top of the hour break. A lot going on in hour number 2. Of course, we'll continue to check in with Kornblut from Doug Kingsmore and get all of the latest there. We're going to talk a little college basketball with Lee Klein as we do each and every Friday. The full Monty coming up with Monty Dutton. And one of the I'm not going to say one of the craziest stories out of NASCAR that you've ever heard. I'm going to say the craziest story you've ever heard out of NASCAR happened today. We'll tell you about that story, and we'll talk with Monty about it in the full Monty as well. And Charleston Southern basketball coach Barclay Radeball will join us. The Bucks, a big one at the Buck Dome tomorrow night, a chance to win a share of the Big South title, but they have to get past a very good High Point to do it. We'll be back. Sports Talk continues on a Friday night.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Busy hour. We're going to talk a lot of college basketball this hour, throw in a little NASCAR, and continue to keep our eye on the big baseball game at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, Game 1 of the rivalry series, Clemson and South Carolina, and it's all Clemson so far. Let's head back up to the dugout and check in with Kornbluth as we play now in the second inning with Clemson, a nice little early working margin.
Absolutely. If you're the Tigers, you got to feel real good. You give a Crownover a 4-run cushion, and you got to feel good about that. And here in the second inning, Gamecock hitters are just swinging at nothing but air. The first two batters he's faced, he has struck them out. But to finish the bottom of the first, we left you, Tigers were up 2-0. Well, the freshman, Ace Pender, hits a fly ball right down the right field line. It landed right on the chalk, I believe. Umpire signaled it fair, and 2 runs scored. He turned that into a triple. And so that made it 4-0, and now Crownover. And this is what you love, K-Mac. You know, you're a pitcher, your offense goes out, and they get you 4 runs. And you know what you do to respond? You come out and you strike out the side. And he got 2 of the batters. He got Destino looking, Arinda struck out swinging, and he just got Koch looking. So Crownover back on top of his game. He's not allowed a hit yet through his 2 innings of work. Tigers have 4 hits after their 1 time at bat, and they're coming up here in the bottom of the second, leading 4-0.
Yeah, nice performance there for Crownover, and he is the ace for a reason. And Clemson, they have some solid pitching, and again, mentally that's what everybody talks about with this rivalry, and they say South Carolina's been in Clemson's head, and certainly they've had the better of this rivalry, but getting a 4-run cushion certainly will take a lot of that pressure off. That'll get you out of somebody's head. And, you know, if South Carolina were to come back in this one and find a way to win this game, goodness, I would not want to be Jack Leggett walking out of Doug Kingsmore Stadium. That would be a real hard pill for him to swallow. But, you know, I got to tell you, I don't think that's going to happen. I think a lot of people are underestimating this Clemson baseball team. Not that we're overestimating South Carolina, but Crownover has the stuff to where he should be able to just fill up the zone, and with that 4-run lead, that should be a good margin for Clemson. A lot of baseball to be played, though. A lot of baseball to be played. We're going to talk some college basketball with Lee Klein, Slam Magazine contributor, former college basketball assistant coach, founder of the 5-Star Camp. We'll get his thoughts on the upcoming slate. Remember, Clemson Senior Day for the Tigers tomorrow afternoon at Little John Coliseum. They face Georgia Tech for the second time in as many weeks. USC at home against Mississippi State. That's the game that South Carolina really should and should win. Not could win. They should win that one at home against Mississippi State. Also, we'll talk about Kevin Stallings at Vanderbilt. He's in a little bit of hot water for getting onto a player, and his outburst towards his player said he was going to blanking kill him. He's apologized. We'll talk about it. It's 4-0. Clemson on top of USC, second inning at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Kornblut is there. We'll check in with him in a bit, and if there's any scoring, we'll definitely throw it up to him. If you missed this story, Vanderbilt coach Kevin Stallings has apologized and will be disciplined internally by the Commodores after an outburst during a win over Tennessee last night that he called unfortunate. He did apologize for having the outburst towards a player in which he, at one point, told the player he was going to kill him. There was a few other choice words before and after that. The chancellor at Vanderbilt says, I understand that the coach's actions has generated discussion and opinions. We have heard from those supporting the coach's intent and from those angered and embarrassed by his comment. Coach Stallings apologized to the student-athlete after the game as well as issuing an immediate public apology. Vanderbilt considers this a personal issue, and as such, it will be handled internally. The player, Wade Baldwin, he even tweeted that he loves Kevin Stallings' passion, and that's why he went to Vandy, and they're good. They're both fiery and passionate. So, I'm not trying to make a big deal about it, but this hits close to home, I know, for South Carolina and South Carolina fans that have often talked about Frank Martin and the way he gets onto his players and often uses choice language, but he's never threatened to kill a guy unless he wasn't being serious. You can't take those. I know this era we're supposed to take all threats seriously, but he wasn't really going to kill him. He didn't put his hands on the guy. He was just frustrated and fired up. But had Frank Martin said that, it wouldn't be handled internally. Remember, he was suspended last year for getting onto a player and using bad language, and it was caught on television, as this one was. The one thing that gets Frank Martin, I'll keep saying this, Kevin Stallings, he's a pretty big guy, but he's bald. He doesn't look really scary, whereas Frank Martin is just, he wears these suits that look like he's in the mob, and he's a big, strong, fiery guy, and I think it scares people when they see that sort of thing. But Vanderbilt's going to handle it internally. That's probably the way to do it. It's just a 24-hour news cycle. There's always a camera on you, and Kevin Stallings got caught. Let's welcome in a guy that's been on the bench in college hoops before, a guy that is now very much entrenched in college basketball, a contributor to Slam Magazine, part of the Five-Star, founder of the Five-Star Camps. Our good friend Lee Klein joining us. And Lee, I mean, as a coach, I know you understand what it's like to get fired up and passionate, and you're trying to make your point. What's your take on a situation like this?
Well, it's really interesting for a few reasons. The first thing is the macro point. What he was trying to do was tell the kid that he was better and the program was better than the actions, that they didn't need to go and taunt the opponent and do, if you will, a classless act. He was getting on his kid, disciplining his kid for a classless act. Mm-hmm. And we need more of that in society, not less of it. Now, how do you go about and do it? That's where the issue was, in which, look, every coach uses choice words. Every coach, every teacher, in some ways has to get personal in order to get someone's attention in that regard. And he crossed the line. He crossed the line, not just because it was caught on camera, but he crossed the line with his words. And I would not have been surprised. I was on a show earlier today. I mean, I thought he'd get suspended because as a faculty member, or looking at it, Vanderbilt, a great institution, looking at it, from the perspective of their faculty or employee of the university, I thought that maybe he would need to be suspended or disciplined. By the way, a lesser coach, one that's done less with this program, will get fired because not because the offense is so bad, but it'll give an athletic director and a president an excuse to fire somebody. So that's sort of what it is. If you're successful enough, you can dodge that bullet. If you're not, you'll go down for it.
Yeah, and Kevin Stallings is a fiery coach. I mean, that's how he coaches. I've seen games where the crowd, I think the Vanderbilt fans like that in him and the type of coach that he is. But
they like it because he's successful.
Yeah, he wins.
He's winning. He found a way for Vanderbilt to be successful. Make no mistake. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys are in Columbia and stuff how hard it is to have a program to win it every so often. The SEC basketball in the world of Florida and Kentucky. So to have any other program be relevant in any specific time, that takes a great effort by a coach, and that's why his act is great, and he's a really great basketball mind.
Yeah.
But if they weren't winning enough, he would be fired.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the business.
And to that point with Frank Martin here in Columbia, the more they lose, the more we get calls and more people seem to point out the fact that they don't really like the way he handles some of his players during games.
Well, what they don't like is what the outcome of the games have been. They don't really. If they will, it's all about the results, right? If South Carolina is winning games in the top part of the SEC and is one of those 5 or 6 teams you're talking about for NCAA tournament, quite frankly, the fans don't mind it. Any way you can do it, get there. I mean, that's sort of where we are in the business of college athletics. But the reality is that Frank hasn't been successful enough to get a little bit of the leeway that his tactics go under scrutiny. And if you're not successful and your tactics are, if you will, a little off base, if you're using choice words, you're not handling things, let's say, as politically correct as others may, then you're in that fine line that can end up being where you could end up losing your job. My question is, I think Trey Martin's a great coach, and he's a recruiter. He's got the best player in the state coming, and so on. If you want to get rid of him, who's the answer? Tell me what the solution is if you think that removing Frank Martin solves anything. I think you got to give him a chance to get his kids in. He got Thornwell in that class. He now has P.J. Dozier coming in. If he doesn't have success next year and you want to hold him accountable, then I can live with that. I can understand that. But I think you got to give him a chance to play with his guys and see if he can't turn it around.
Talking hoops with Lee Klein, a big game in the SEC tomorrow that a lot of people have their eye on, present company included. Kentucky at home against Arkansas. Wildcats 28-0, 15-0. If anybody can beat them, you would think it would be Arkansas. Not going to be easy to go into Rupp and do that, but maybe this is a danger zone type game for Kentucky.
Kentucky's biggest opponents is themselves and the pressure of staying undefeated. I mean, Arkansas is a good team. I just don't think that on the road. I mean, Arkansas is, and give Mike Anderson a lot of credit here, traditionally great at home, very average on the road. This year they've been better on the road. He's done a nice job with that, and he's got a couple of horses there. Bobby Portis going to be drafted in the first round. He's got some players. But he doesn't have the depth Kentucky has. Kentucky's just going to wear down on court with the bigs, and it's just too much pressure. But I think for Arkansas, you go into that game, you play loose. You've got nothing to lose. Everyone expects you to lose. So if you play loose, who knows? Then the pressure goes on to that weight of being undefeated on Kentucky, and then they start playing tight, and then all of a sudden you have a chance. But Kentucky's a better team. And I don't think Arkansas has got the depth to knock them down tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, do you think Kentucky can do this, run this table all the way to the end?
I think they'll run it to the tournament, and then it depends on the matchups. Because I think teams with pace are going to be the ones that are going to give them the hardest, the biggest problem, like the Virginias and teams like that can play in pace and frustrate Kentucky. Those are the ones that I think will be the biggest challenge.
Lee, always a pleasure to talk to you. Have a great weekend. We'll catch up with you next week.
My pleasure. Take care.
Great stuff from Lee Klein. And, Kentucky, Arkansas, 4 o'clock. USC and Mississippi State, 6 o'clock tip at Colonial Life Arena. And Clemson, Senior Day at Little John Coliseum. Rod Hall and DeMarcus Harrison will play their final game at Little John Coliseum as the Tigers face Georgia Tech, high noon tip. We'll hear from Brad Brownell coming up after the timeout. Also, we'll update USC Clemson at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Got some comments from Brad Brownell right around the corner. Let's head up to Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Clemson on top of USC. Phil Kornblut with the latest.
Well, the big news here is that for the first time in the history of Doug Kingsmore Stadium, they have served the media Chinese food in the press box.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice call.
No chopsticks or anything. We're having to use spoons and knives and the like, but still, it's tasty. Anyway, back to the ball game. It's still 4-0. Clemson threatening again here in the bottom of the third. Krieger singled to left center to lead off the inning, went to second on a wild pitch. And so the Tigers have something brewing here in the bottom of the third. USC went down in order in the top of the third. Couple of ground outs and a fly ball. So Crow still has not allowed a hit. And Crow has just issued a walk in this inning. So now it's first and second for the Tigers. Nobody out. They lead it 4-0.
All right, let's jump to Brad Brownell. Senior day for the Tigers tomorrow afternoon at Little John Coliseum. Another matchup with a Georgia Tech squad that beat them in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago.
A little bit. I mean, both teams will be very familiar with each other, usually are, but especially playing in the last 2 weeks. Both teams will feel very comfortable with, what the other team's trying to do, what you need to do to win. Then it's about competing in execution. And, we need to execute better than we did in that game down there. We didn't execute offensively very well in the game, and I thought they beat us to a few loose balls with rebounding, and we had some transition turnovers that were very costly, and we've got to correct that in this game.
Conference tournament's so close now. Is there any conversation, especially with a guy like Rod, if you want to keep playing, you got to string together some wins here?
Well, again, we always just talk about, wanting to finish as high as we can in the ACC, and we're in a jumble there with 4 or 5 teams where we're all a game away from each other with 3 to go. And if you play well and win 3, you never know what can happen. And I think our guys understand that. I think guys like Rod, who are a little bit older, and DeMarcus probably understand a little bit better than some of the younger guys. But at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is we just want to finish as well as we can in the ACC. And it would be great if we could have another winning ACC season.
Ron back to 100%?
Pretty close. Yeah, he's been practicing. Should be fine. A little stiff at times, but he's fine.
All right, Brad Brownell getting set for Georgia Tech tomorrow. Let's quickly go back to Doug Kingsmore Stadium. I think we have Corn standing by. We've had more activity, a home run for the Tigers to extend that lead, Corn.
Well, make it 2.
Wow.
Back-to-back homers for the Tigers. 3-run homer by Chris Oakey in the power alley in left center field, followed up by a home run just over the fence in right center by Weston Wilson, his second of the season. This is an absolute blowout now. It's Clemson 8, USC nothing here in the bottom of the third, K-Mac.
All right, all Clemson at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. The full Monty coming up next. February in studio. Phil Kornblut at the stadium, Doug Kingsmore Stadium, taking in Clemson and USC. The Tigers just throttling the Gamecocks right now. We'll check back in with Kornblut momentarily. But speaking of throttling, let's talk some NASCAR with Monty Dutton, the full Monty segment here on Sports Talk. And Monty, you are the king of NASCAR in our eyes here on Sports Talk, and you've covered, you've forgotten about more NASCAR races than most of us have watched. So you could speak to this more than I could, but to me, the story that came out with Travis Kvapil today is the craziest NASCAR story I've ever seen. He had to pull out of the race because his car was stolen at the Drury Inn and Suites in Morrow, Georgia, and he can't find his car. His trailer was taken, and now he can't race.
It's a really strange story, maybe for more reasons than is at first readily apparent. A lot of the teams sent their transporters down to Atlanta earlier because of concerns about the snow that ended up being not as serious as they thought. So his team's transporter went to the Speedway early, but they wanted to work on their car, so they sent it down, basically towed by an F-350 Ford truck and a big, long, enclosed trailer, the type trailer that you might see more commonly at a local short track. And so they came down. They were going to move into the track earlier, I guess early this morning, or well, maybe it was yesterday morning. I don't know. But the fact is so they just checked in the motel, and they were going to go to the track at like 5:30, and they went out and no trailer. So, it's a little bit more difficult because if somebody, stole a huge transporter with a big picture of the car on the side, it would be very difficult to steal that without and not be caught. It'd be sort of like stealing a battleship. And so, but they just stole a trailer that looked like it probably could have had, lawn and garden stuff in it.
Yeah.
And so that is what probably, there's some doubt as to whether the people who stole it know what they stole.
Yeah,
so they might be looking for a John Deere and finding a race car.
Well, that was my favorite tweet from Kvapil. He said, "I bet whoever has it opens the trailer and it's going to be like, oh snap! what do we do? We have a sprint car here, with a big 44 on the side of it. What in the world? It's not like you're going to be able to unload that thing and not get busted."
Travis, who is a former Truck Series champion, who is sort of one of those guys who struggle to make it. He's taken his lumps, bounced around at the Cup level. I guess he's sort of like one of those guys in baseball who's always going back and forth from, AAA to the major leagues. It's his birthday weekend, and he gets to spend all the time blowing out candles now, I guess.
Yeah, or driving around Atlanta looking for his car.
Well, it's not the only thing. It's been kind of a bizarre day. This qualifying session, nothing like a qualifying session when 13 cars don't even get on the track because they didn't get through inspection in time. Now, the Daytona 500 was run with cars with the same rules as last year because it's a plate race where they control horsepower. But this is the first race with the rules that are for all the tracks that don't use restrictor plates, and they have the cars have less horsepower and less downforce. This is an attempt by NASCAR to make the racing better. They do that annually for about the last 5 years, and they and so they tested down there on Thursday, and so they couldn't get the cars. Apparently, there was a bunch of confusion, and some of the top cars, including Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart and a bunch of others, never even got out there. They ran a lap in practice. They'll be in the race, but they'll be starting deep in the field, some of the biggest names in the sport. And Logano won the pole, and he looks exceptionally strong because this is since they had this 3-round qualifying, the cars generally get a little bit slower because they have to have the same set of tires, and the tires wear out a little bit. But Logano set the fastest time in the final section, which is unusual and probably a bit sinister for the other people racing against him, because he had the fastest time of all 3 rounds in the last session, and that's pretty uncommon, and it bodes well for his chances on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, what a week for him. Winning the 500, his first ever Daytona 500 win, and now the pole in Atlanta, and no one's ever questioned his talent. Maybe he's starting to kind of hit his stride, so to speak.
Well, that was my point in the story I wrote about him this week. I have started writing columns for Bleacher Report, and they came to me in the off season, and the point of my story was that he's always had all the talent in the world, and he came to NASCAR with all the advantages that money could buy. But he is a kid who, when he was 18, he's been his nickname is Sliced Bread, biggest thing since Sliced Bread. It's kind of a snide nickname that came up when he first came out. And he, was homeschooled, never did anything, all racing, never went to a high school prom, never. And so he was pretty naive when he got to NASCAR. And I think that when he started out, he's always been really talented. But I think that what he had to learn was maturity, but also toughness, because you go out there and you're the new kid on the block, and you get, they test your willpower. And I think that it took him, I think that when he was 18 years old, he was way more talented than most young people, but way less mature. And so he had to go through the school of hard knocks early, or late, I should say. And so I think that it is, right now, he is coming into his own and realizing his potential, because his maturity has caught up with his talent level.
You mentioned the changes and the problems that started, created with the qualifying today, and also pointed out that it does seem like NASCAR is always trying to do these things to make the racing better. Do you think this change is going to make the racing better this weekend?
Time will tell. Early last year, I thought the racing was exceptional. And then when the summertime came, I thought that the quality of it fell off. My suspicion is that part of that is that maybe early in the season, when it doesn't make so much difference, that everybody sort of puts on a show. You know what I mean? Like the first half of races, they're, kind of not putting much resistance when somebody wants to pass. And I'm not saying that the derogatory term for that is formation flying. And there's a negative connotation to that, and it's sort of manipulated. I don't think it's all that dramatic. I just think it's one of those situations where, in a format where the first 26 races are just a matter of qualifying for the chase, I think when the chips are really on the line and people get more and more desperate to make the chase as the race wind down before it starts, I think that they get a little bit less obliging to other people. And that, so what I'm saying is, it may well be, this is something that I pondered all last year, because I couldn't understand why the first 10 or 12 races of the season, man, I thought it was really good. And then by the middle of the summer, NASCAR was deciding, well, we got to fix these cars again. The racing's no good. So I think maybe there's a little bit more. I think you have to wait and look at this for a while.
Monty, we appreciate it as always, a full Monty, and we'll look for your stuff on Bleacher. And you follow Monty Dutton on Twitter as well. Always good stuff. The full Monty. We'll check in at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, and we'll catch up with Barclay Radeball at Charleston Southern after the break. All right, we've got Barclay Radeball standing by, but let's go back up to Kornblut at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, where USC is on the board now. Gamecocks spotted Clemson 8, and Corn now trying to scratch into that lead.
Yes, they are. 4 hits in the inning, including a 3-run homer by Connor Bright, has gotten the Gamecocks back into the ball game to some degree. 8-3. Schrock led off with a single. Martin then singled. Then Schrock hit his home run to left center field on a 1-0 pitch. Gamecocks are still threatening here in the inning. They have runners on first and second, and there is 1 out. So it's an 8-3 Clemson win. Both pitchers now edging up. I think Crownover is over 70 pitches, and Crow is getting near the 70-pitch mark here, and we're just in the 4th inning, guys.
All right, Corn, we'll check back in with you again before we sign off tonight. But let's go back to the hardwood now and head down to Charleston. Welcome in Barclay Radeball to the program. Charleston Southern facing High Point tomorrow at the Buck Dome, 4:30 tip, and a big game because the Big South Championship, at least a piece of it, on the line for Charleston Southern. Coach, welcome in. I know if you would have been asked at the beginning of the season, hey, you're going to be playing on a Saturday as the end of the season winds down with a chance to get a share of the Big South Championship, you would have said, I'll take that.
I would have signed that contract very quickly. With the number of great teams in our league. There's 2 teams right now that can win the regular season, and we'll face off tomorrow at 4:30, like you said, here in the Buck Dome, and the trophy will be here, and somebody's going to walk home with the regular season trophy.
High Point 22-7, 13-4 in the Big South, and the Bucks 18-10, 12-5 in the Big South. You faced them earlier this season at their place. That was an 11-point game. What do you remember from that one, and what can you take from that one and put towards tomorrow?
Well, we didn't play particularly well. It was that stretch where we had a bunch of games in a few number of days, and credit High Point. They executed and played really hard, and are very well coached by Scott Cherry, and they really took it to us there. We scratched and clawed and got it down to, I guess, 3 or 4 there in the second half, and then they hit a couple threes to extend the lead, and I just remember a pretty tough bus ride home, and looking at a lot of ways that we needed to improve.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do tomorrow? How do you slow down this team? Because slowing them down has not been something many people have done this year.
Well, they're so difficult to guard. They're one of the few teams in our league that has an absolute post presence, and John Brown, who is probably worthy of being mentioned, at least for an honorable mention, All-American position. He's a 6'7", 6'8" forward that is so difficult to guard because he can play at 15 feet and put the ball on the floor, and then he is one of the strongest post players that we've competed against in my 10 years, here at Charleston Southern, and then they shoot the ball so well, so you really got to pick your poison a little bit, whether you're going to try to take away their John Brown or really concentrate on those shooters, and it makes it very difficult, and that's why they're where they are. They have very good players who are well coached.
This is your final game before the Big South tournament. You guys lost on Thursday at Gardner-Webb, but you had won 4 or 5 in a row, I believe, to that point. Do you like the way your team's playing right now as you're hitting this crucial part of the season?
I really do. We've won 10 out of 13, and we had won 5 in a row before last night. And we caught Gardner-Webb on a very tough night. It was senior night for some very important players in their program, and they came out and hit their first 7 3-point shots and kind of threw a haymaker at us, and we were able to crawl back to the corner and get some water and get back out to the center of the ring. And our guys really fought and really scrapped, and we just couldn't make up that difference there that they got a pretty good lead there in the first half. We got it down to 1, and in the second half we got it down to 3 or 4. They just played really well, and credit to Gardner-Webb. It was a difficult loss for us, but no matter what, we knew this game would decide it. We can gain a share of the Big South Championship. We can finish 13-5, in our league and share the title with High Point. And in the tiebreaker, we would win the tiebreaker. So we would be the number 1 seed going into the tournament. So there's a lot to play for, and plus it's senior night for us, and we have 5 very valuable and important seniors that have really helped us turn this program around.
I'm sure the Buck Dome's going to be rocking tomorrow at 4:30. The people that are lucky enough to get in.
Yeah, there's going to be. I just encourage people, if you're going to get here, you might want to get here about 3 o'clock. I mean, honest, I've had more ticket requests this game than any game since I've been at Charleston Southern. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Best of luck to you, Barkley, Radabaugh, Charleston Southern, High Point tomorrow 4:30. Get there early. The Big South on the line for the Bucks. We'll check in with Kornblut one more time before we sign off here and see what's happening at Doug Kingsmore. Boy, time flies when you're having fun. Hard to believe we're almost out of time for the whole entire week. But we'll be back Monday, same time, same place. And even though we won't be on the air this weekend, there'll be a lot of great stuff for you at SportsTalkSC.com. Recap, highlights, and audio from tonight's game between Clemson and USC at Doug Kingsmore. We'll have both basketball games covered for you tomorrow, the baseball game tomorrow, and the baseball game Sunday. That and a lot more at SportsTalkSC.com. And follow along on Twitter for updates there at SportsTalkSC. Let's head back up to Doug Kingsmore Stadium and get another look from Phil Kornblut.
And I leave you with this in honor of the Chinese food that was served to us tonight here in the press box, and this being in the Chinese calendar the year of the goat. I just wonder if there is a goat to be crowned in this game tonight at some point in time. It's 8-3 as we play here in the bottom of the fourth inning. Clemson batting. Now they have not got a runner on base. 2 men are out. So it's 8-3 still. South Carolina back in the game a little bit in the last inning with that 3-run homer by Connor Bright. Gave them a little bit of life. And you know what? Their pitcher went out and did what you want him to do after you get some runs. Go back out there and get me a 1-2-3, and that's what Will Crow got. And so let's take a look at where we are pitch count-wise here.
Pretty much always what you want your pitcher to do, though.
Well, yeah, but especially after you score some runs, you'd like for him to get a 1-2-3.
Yeah.
And as far as the pitch counts, Crownover sitting on 2 pitches as he comes out, and Crow just finished up the inning with 81 pitches. So not sure how much longer he'll go. Well, it depends on how many more pitches he throws in the next inning or so. 8-3. We're going to the fifth inning. Tigers are well in control of this one, but we've seen some crazy things happen in this series over the years, so I wouldn't discount anything from this point forward.
So when you were eating your Chinese food, Corn, did you Google if it was the year of the goat, or you wanted to see what the Chinese year was, or did you just walk around with that kind of information in your brain?
I knew this. I knew that was the year of the. You don't follow the annual year of on the Chinese calendar?
I don't.
I think it's something that's important to know.
Do you have a Chinese calendar that you keep in your office?
I have it hanging from my keychain.
Yeah, you check in on that. Oh, I did not know.
You have your little, you have your athlete, you have your grocery store.
Yeah.
Thing on your chain.
Yeah.
You have your workout card. I have my little Chinese calendar on there.
Yeah, that's good to know.
So it is the year of the goat.
Corn, I know you'll have good stuff from there tonight on the website, and also tomorrow you're staying up there in the upstate, heading over to Greenville. We'll have the basketball game, Clemson, Georgia Tech basketball game, and the South Carolina, Mississippi State basketball game covered for you on the website, sportstalksc.com. Follow along on Twitter at sportstalksc. The gang will all be back together again on Monday, same time, same place, for Corn up at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, for Graham Pope behind the glass, and our intern, our newest intern, Larkin. What's Larkin's last name, Pope? Larkin Belton. I'll learn your last name eventually, Larkin. I knew your first name, so that's a start. Kevin McCrary here wishing you a great weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday.